All right, Victorum Gaming fans, we are back with another review video for SPQR. Today we're taking a look at the big boys, and that is Imperial Rome. Really, if you're into Ancients gaming, at some point everyone I think has probably wanted to, already has played some flavor of Rome, whether it's Republican or Imperial. And the Imperial army in this game is really awesome. So they give you some history as usual to start off with, basically change from the Republic to the Empire, and how that affected the army as well. And as we saw with the Republican, or the Caesar's Legion, I guess they call it in this game, you especially for campaign play, you get basically a free healing hands talent, even if none of your heroes have it. Which basically, if your heroes actually do take sort of permanent injuries, you can heal that for free. So just a cool freebie just for playing Rome. So on the hero side, you get, unlike some of the more recent factions we looked at, your hero is a base of 50 denarii, but that's because, again, he's going to be a little bit better just to start with. Although he doesn't come with any gear, but having that Hero of Rome ability, which we'll see below, really gives them sort of an edge, depending on your dice rolls, of course. So plus 2 melee dice, 1 agility to start with, plus 2 bravery, so fairly standard there. And equipment is basically what you would expect for Rome. So large shield, a cuirass if you want to go super heavy on the defense, but it's going to slow your movement. Chainmail shirt, or really what you should be coming for is the Lorica Segmentata. Best protection with basically no movement penalties. You can give him a Pilum if you want. Dagger seems like really a waste of time. Basically, you're going to be giving him a sword. And you could also give him a standard, which is really interesting to have that on a hero. And you could certainly mount him as well, which again will help you with armor and wounds and getting around the battlefield, of course. And you do have access to cavalry in this list, so we will see that in just a bit. Hero of Rome is really cool for campaigns. So basically, as it says here, the Republic produced some great heroes in its time, although it produced some fools. Every time the hero receives a bonus characteristic from going up a level, roll a dice. On a 1, you don't get anything at all, so there is a risk. So you could have a fairly high-level character without getting all of his upgrades. But on a 5 or 6, you may increase 2 characteristics by 1. So that's really what you want to be gaming for, hopefully, and you get those rolls. And your hero will basically be better than a hero at the same level, just because you'll have those extra characteristic buffs. So very quickly, if the dice are with you as you gain levels, these heroes can transform into pretty badass and pretty scary things to deal with. So as you might expect, our first unit that we will look at is the bog standard legionary, clocking in at 24 denarii. Slower. This is overall going to be a slower army because they're wearing heavier armor, although we can fix that. So they start with chainmail shirts, large shield and swords, plus 2 melee, 2 melee dice, fairly standard for your close combat infantry units. They already come with plus 2 bravery. They don't have to worry about strength in numbers or anything like that. It's just a standard plus 2 bravery, so really cool there. And starting off with that plus 3 to their armor. So again, super defensive units. And they will just outlast many types of opponents. So a worthwhile upgrade to consider is replacing the chainmail shirt with Lorica Segmentata for 2 denarii apiece. Well worth considering. Basically, same armor, I believe, but then the movement penalty goes away from wearing chainmail. So it almost seems like a no-brainer. You could give them Pila as well, which again we'll cover in a separate video when we get to equipment, but well worth having that potentially for sort of that first contact with enemies, which makes your first turn really good too, whether you're charged or charged. Slings seem like a waste, you have plus 1 ranged, and really you should be not wasting points on doing that. There's other units that you'll use for ranged fighting. Interestingly, though, if you want to go that route, you can upgrade to veterans with plus 1 bonus to ranged, melee, and bravery for 8 apiece. So, is it worth it? That's if you bought the slings and you bought that bonus, that's another 11 points. You're spending a whole lot of denarii on a very elite unit, sure, but is it really worth it for shooting one sling a turn? I would probably say no. However, maybe like a couple of units for larger games, having this veteran status is really cool. I mean, +3 to your melee, you're going to be hitting more often than not. And having that +3 bravery is going to be very useful if things are going against you. They do have that option for a horn and a standard, as usual, with the 10 and 25 denarii respectively there. So certainly, considering that veteran thing maybe for a unit or two as game size increases. And as we saw in Caesar's Legion, they do have shield wall ability. So basically, if all the models in a legionary unit are in base contact with one another, and the unit numbers at least 10 models, they gain a bonus parry. So again, even more on the defensive side. But again, staying above 10 models is the key there. So if you're going veteran status and going with Lorica, the points definitely add up. So it's something you'll have to factor in. And they do have the option to do Testudo. So basically, super defense against range attacks. So to form that, all members must be in contact with one another, and again, at least 10 models, and you have to do a special action for it. From that point, the unit's move is halved, but it may reroll all armor checks made to defend against ranged attacks. A Testudo is disbanded immediately by the unit performing a melee action, or any model in the unit being out of contact with at least 2 other models in the same unit. This may be done as a move action on the part of the player or by his opponent causing casualties. It is a little annoying that doing a melee breaks it. Certainly, they should have something like halved melee ability or half melee dice or something, but be able to stay in there. So, but very, very useful if you're dealing with an army that's going to pepper you with ranged fire. Although, considering you're already basically going to be at armor +3, you might just sort of take the approach of getting in the opponent's face, getting into combat where their ranged is going to be mitigated and doing what Romans do, or the Roman legions do, and that's just beating face here. So still a useful ability depending on what kind of range you're facing, potentially. But again, with it having your movement, you're basically becoming kind of a sitting duck. So it may just be worth, getting in the enemy's face and dealing with the problem rather than sort of staying there and just absorbing damage. Eventually, you're going to want to be attacking, which is where you're going to just deal with your problem. So, could be cool to sit on an objective, though, with the Testudo and basically make them remove you. And obviously, if they get into range for combat, you can, again, perform your melee action and just deal with the problem. So, moving on, we get to the Praetorian Guard, which is a really awesome unit, although we'll have a little bit of a rant here just because even with the FAQ, I don't think this got fixed, and I don't know if other people have played this a lot and felt that this is unbalanced, but if there is something that I think is unbalanced in this game, it is this unit. Not in their standard version here on foot. It's when you mount these guys that it really becomes a problem. But let's take a look at them first. So for 36 denarii, you are getting basically a unit of heroes is the way to look at it. So movement of 5, range +2, melee +3, 2 melee dice, no agility, +3 bravery to start with, +3 armor from the Lorica, and 2 wounds. Again, each one of these guys is 2 wounds. These are basically, again, heroes. In fact, even slightly better than heroes because you have +3 melee and +3 bravery to start with. If we head back to the hero real quick, you'll see for 50, it's only +2 and +2 on those stats. So for fewer points, you're getting something better. And it also comes with large shield, Lorica, Pila, and a sword. So again, balance issues there. I just feel like this is you're getting way too much for the points here. Here's where it gets a little bit busted though. So change Lorica segmentada to a chainmail shirt, typo there, and purchase a horse and long spear for 10 denarii. That's crazy. How much does it cost to give a hero that? 30 denarii. Here you're getting it for 10. You're getting the chainmail, which again, if it's not barding, it's not going to affect the speed of the horse. So, okay, big deal. And you get a long spear on top of that, all for 10 denarii. If you remember, we'll cover that in a separate video, but well worth checking that up on that. Having the horse will buff your armor by 1 and also a wound, an extra wound for the horse, essentially. So you will have +4 armor and 3 wounds for a whopping 46 denarii, which is still cheaper than the hero who comes with nothing. That is absolutely busted. You could theoretically just run a whole army of Praetorians, and honestly, I'm not sure like how you lose. You'd have to really have horrible dice rolls and have a lot of things not go your way to not just auto win with some of these things. Or with this unit here, that's just redonkulous. They do have shield wall and testudo, but obviously if you're mounted, you can't really do that. Or if you have the horses basically, yeah. So again, this I feel like needs to be something needs to be addressed here. Their stats, just even without going with the horse option, they're really, really good, which is fine, but nothing else that's equivalent from other armies has 2 wounds base, or those kind of stats base. So these guys really just are almost too good. You're not really going to see them in small games, I would say, but a unit of these guys in a bigger game, they will just go through enemy units and come out on top, I feel. And again, if you go for the horse option, 46 denarii gets you basically a upgraded hero, like a hero who's leveled up a couple of times for fewer points than a level 1 hero. Just that extra armor and the extra wound from being mounted, plus getting the long spear on top of all the other equipment you've already got, is frankly just ridiculous. So hopefully something is done there. But if you guys have any questions, or not questions, but comments on that, any experiences playing with these Praetorian Guard, or having played against them, by all means, give us a comment. Let us know what you think. And if you guys do any kind of like house rules or anything for the size of the unit, or anything else to address that. And maybe it's just me, but again, I feel like that's just an oversight on their part. I just don't feel like that is balanced at all. But nonetheless, it could be a really cool unit, and would certainly stand out depending on how you model them. Then those are basically the main Roman units. Then we get into a whole page of auxiliaries. So we get basically the standard auxiliary. So only +1 melee, still 2 dice, +1 bravery, but again, for 8 denarii gets chainmail, a large shield, and a sword. So they're not going to be super killy. They're not going to hit that often, but for 8 denarii, you're getting kind of a really solid defensive unit. They don't have shield wall or testudo. They're not really trained for that. But again, +3 armor for 8 denarii is pretty good. Large shield with the ranged parries, and then if they're in combat, they got 3 parries apiece. That's pretty good. You can give them short spears, which not sure if that really is worthwhile. Even then, that only takes them to 10 denarii. But a horn for 10 and a standard for 25, as is pretty common across the units. So certainly seems like a okay investment considering how cheap these guys are. I mean, a unit of 10 for 80. And you buy a horn, takes it to 90. That's a pretty solid little unit. We move on. We get auxiliary archers. So as with all things Imperial, again, just really awesome on the defensive side. Only range +1, they're not super skilled. They do still have 2 melee dice, so you do want to be careful potentially of charging these guys. They, again, only +1 melee, they're not going to hit that much, but weight of dice sometimes will do crazy things. They have a bow and chainmail shirts. So, normally most ranged type units, skirmisher type units, pretty squishy. Doesn't take much to kill them. Not these Romans, no. Chainmail all day, every day. You can give them swords, which maybe is an option there. Only takes them to 11 apiece, and well, if you get into combat, you'll at least be able to fight back with something aside from your fists, and you do get that extra parry for having a sword. So that could be a little bit of a surprise for an enemy charging in, thinking it's easy peasy knocking out an archer unit. They can have a horn and a standard. Not sure if the standard's really necessary there, but a horn could be really cool once per game. Just basically firing 3 times in a turn could be pretty devastating. And then last here, on the auxiliary side, we get the cavalrymen, base 25 here. Only +1 melee, 2 dice, 1 bravery, but again, really good armor. So we get a chainmail shirt, the horse, large shield, and a sword. Basically all you really need. Short spears could be an option, though. Gives you that extra little punch when you're charging. Still keeps the cost pretty reasonable. Interestingly, and again, just reflecting sort of the various conquered peoples of the Roman Empire, you can replace the horses with camels for 5 apiece, and those do have some special rules. Again, we'll cover all that under equipment and weapons and armor and all that stuff in separate videos. And then the horn and standard options as is normal. So melee +1 is going to be maybe sort of the letdown with these guys. They're not going to be that great of fighters, but again, still relatively cheap, so throwing a whole bunch of dice will hopefully mitigate that. And again, really just rock solid armor across the board with this Imperial army. And they do have hit and run. There's no restrictions on that as far as upgrades go. So basically, you've got almost like a medium heavy-ish cavalry unit that can fill that actually harassing role with hit and run too. So really interesting stuff there for the Romans. And again, there's no shortage of models, whether it's from Warlord or other companies, so you can really just go nuts on the hobby side with how you're going to represent all these different things. They do have the Scorpio team, as we saw with the Caesar's Legion, so here basically only real difference is they have Lorica, Segmentata, and a sword, and other than that, everything's really the same there. So the 2 crew basically are going to be fairly well armored. On the mercenary side, again, reflecting Rome, the extent of the Roman Empire. So huge selection there. You got Britain, Gaul, Germania, and Iberia, really your conquered peoples. So all kinds of flavors of that. And then a good selection from the named mercenary list. You get Balearic slingers, Cretan archers, and again, just some of the best on the ranged side. So if you don't want to just go with the auxiliaries and you really want to get more hits and cause damage, these guys are awesome. Gacetos will cover 2, kind of interesting unit, and then you have access to Numidians as well. So really, again, sort of cream of the crop skirmishers and some light cavalry there. So really, just a really cool army. Roman armies are always fun to collect and play with pretty much regardless of the game, I would say. So, and the Imperial side versus the Caesars list obviously reflects that diversity and all those different conquered people. So, again, aside from that Praetorian Guard thing, I think just really cool army. So we do get just 2 special characters, named heroes, whereas the Caesar's Legion I think had 4 or something like that, 4 or 6 even. So hopefully they'll add some more down the road just to reflect again more of the various emperors and other heroes from the empire. So we start off with Germanicus, 150 denarii. He can go with a horse as well. Level 6 hero. He is super slow, so maybe a horse is the option there because he's wearing a cuirass, so that is a factor. Range 1, only +2 melee, but 4 melee dice. Solid agility at +2, +3 bravery, armor, of course, and then the wounds. You got a really good set of talents there. And interestingly, another little typo here. I think they addressed that in the FAQ because it does say his equipment is cuirass, horse, and sword, but that is also listed as an option. So either he comes with it or you need to purchase it. So hopefully that got straightened out. Talents, Darting Blade. So we see there basically he gets a free melee action after killing something once per turn. So he's a pretty decent close combat monster here. Lethal Blade, sword becomes lethal too, so that's very scary with the 4 dice that he throws. He's light of foot, so again he can get over terrain fairly easily. Motivation, so again any friendly unit within 12 may do 3 actions basically if they haven't activated yet. So that can be really nasty with, again, sort of that Roman buzzsaw where they just start grinding down with the legionaries and stuff like that. So giving up his own turn or parts of his turn basically to have other units of yours get that extra action can be absolutely devastating at the right time. Quick dodge, he has -1, or basically has a cover, considered as have cover while he's in the open. So if he isn't leading a unit, he can definitely get from place to place. And between his regular armor and that, he doesn't have too much to worry about. He's also got Wall of Iron, so he has another parry with his sword. So again, very nasty little character here in close combat, and well planted, so he can pass agility checks to not get knocked down. So not the biggest badass in combat, but certainly no slouch either. So should definitely be respected. And he has a really cool special ability as well, called Beloved, or Beloved by All. There were few military leaders of Rome who enjoyed the love of the people as much as Germanicus genuinely did. Every unit in his warband will automatically succeed every will to fight check they are called upon to make, as long as Germanicus is in line of sight. However, if Germanicus is removed as a casualty, every unit in his warband will suffer a -2 penalty to all will to fight checks. So if you can keep him alive, you've got an army which basically isn't going to be running away. And Germanicus is certainly pretty tough, pretty survivable. But if he does go down, it will have a huge penalty on your army too. So then we have Tiberius, one of the emperors. So 125 denarii. +1 range, +2 melee, 4 dice again, 1 bravery, 1 agility, 3 bravery to start with, great armor again, and 5 wounds. He's got, again, a cuirass, horse, and a sword, although it's listed again as an option. So, again, hopefully something that got addressed in the FAQ. We'll actually run through that in a video as well. Special abilities, kind of interesting. Poisonous Mother. The enemies of Tiberius had a habit of falling suddenly ill. While some recovered, many did not, and there was always an idea that Livia, the mother of Tiberius, had a hand in aiding her son's ambitions. At the start of a battle, Tiberius may make an opposed bravery check with any enemy hero. If Tiberius is successful, the hero is removed from the battlefield as a casualty, having fallen suddenly ill. So, really kind of a crazy ability here, and might be something that certainly in like campaigns could be really nasty, and really just devastate an opponent's army, depending on how useful a given hero might be to their plans and overall things that they're trying to accomplish, and especially with whatever talents their enemy hero might have. And the way this reads, it doesn't differentiate between generic heroes and named heroes, so it doesn't really matter who you have on the other side. If he wins that opposed bravery check, your hero is just not going to be playing. So really, really strong ability, colorful ability, but might be a little bit busted for sort of like tournament play or something like that. And he has some really cool talents too. So Demoralize. So basically, if he charges and like he outnumbers the enemy unit. So if he's like leading a unit, for example, that enemy unit has to pass a bravery check or move away, which basically will count as fleeing. And there's, of course, nasty effects when you flee, depending on some of the equipment you have. Although if the enemy is led by a hero, then they ignore that. He's got Die Hard. So again, we've seen that with several other heroes. Basically, they have the ability to, if they lose their last wound, they have the ability to potentially come back with 1 wound for a while. Heroic Rush, so once per game he can have 3 actions himself. Motivation, any friendly unit within 12 may, again, do 3 actions if they haven't already activated. He's got Voice of Command, so every friendly unit within 6 gains an extra bravery, although not himself. And then War Cry, when he charges, an enemy unit is -1 melee for that action. So if Demoralized, it won't work because there's a hero there. He would probably be charging with Warcry. So really nasty. And again, that ability to get rid of an enemy hero potentially, +3 bravery is really solid. So he will probably win a lot of those opposed checks. So that really can just be a gut punch to an enemy force. So especially if they're counting on a hero to be doing something very specific for their army. Just the potential lack of that hero's abilities and other things that they do before you even rolled a single die, really well. Say um, a single dice in the actual battle. So obviously you got to beat that bravery check. That is just brutal. But that is Imperial Rome. Really cool faction. So again, if you like Rome, you already know what these guys are all about. Really cool options for painting, modeling, huge diversity of units. And again, aside from that Praetorian Guard thing, I think really just one of the coolest armies for the game. So hopefully you guys like that video. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for more SPQR content.